Friends, hello. Welcome to yet another episode of The Legal Breakdown. I am Jason Sansone with Sansone Howell Attorneys at Law. As always, we'd like to remind all of our viewers and listeners that they can call into the program at 405-347-7238. We stream that information on this live feed for those watching in Facebook, as well as you can find it on our webpage at sansonehowell.com. SANSONEHOWELL.com. All prior episodes are archived and are live on our site. If for some reason you're busy and you can't watch the show, or maybe you can't listen to it as it airs live on KTLV 1220 AM, you can also listen to this program as a podcast. The podcast is available on Google Play, Apple iTunes directory, and in Spotify. And we usually have that posted within 24 hours of the original air date, and all former episodes are available. Once again, just noted a minute ago, we're very happy of our host station, KTLV 1220 AM, where we are broadcasting live. And you can always listen to KTLV 1220 through the TuneIn radio app. So if you happen to be traveling or you're outside of the Oklahoma City metropolitan area, beyond the reach of the terrestrial AM radio stations at KTLV, you can listen through their streaming app with the TuneIn radio app. Unfortunately, due to all the tough weather we're having here in Oklahoma City today, we may experience some issues with our Facebook live stream. We've had a lot of internet outages in the Arvest Bank Tower today, and so this could be another episode that's difficult to watch live as it's streaming. So we apologize to those that are attempting to watch and are not able to listen, but we will upload at a later date that video, and we can post the YouTube link for anyone that may be having difficulties. But remember, as always, you can call, you can ask your questions through social media. We want to tackle that. Friends, today is going to be a little more different than some of our prior episodes to date. We've tackled issues with bankruptcy. We've talked about estate planning, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, advanced medical directives. We've talked in many episodes about bankruptcy law and what that can mean and how that looks. Today we're going to have a more casual conversation. We're not going to get lost in all the nuances of the law. We're just going to talk about the number one thing that people, in my experience, like to ask attorneys. So what is the question I get probably more than any other question? And this is a question that I've been asked since the day I graduated law school. Can anybody guess? That is, should I go to law school? So today we're actually going to shift gears. We're not going to talk about the law. We're going to address, for those that have ever considered seeking a legal education, or maybe have some children or young ones that are, or friends, family that are considering seeking a legal education, we're going to break down and talk about the topic of, should I go to law school? Well, number one, let's talk about what is a legal education in the United States. It's an advanced degree. You have to already have a 4-year bachelor's diploma before you can apply to any ABA accredited law school. So first thing, if you're considering this, maybe you're listening and you're in high school or earlier, maybe you've served in the military honorably and now you've gotten out and you're looking at furthering your career and your education. What does all this mean? Well, like I just mentioned, you're going to start out with an undergraduate diploma. You're going to start out with an undergraduate degree. Myself, I attended the University of Oklahoma. And you can have a bachelor's in virtually anything that you want. And I personally think that it's very important then to use that time wisely as well for a couple reasons. Number one, there's no guarantee that you're going to ultimately become an attorney, that this is a long path you're considering undertaking, that when you consider 4 years, for most people at a minimum, for a bachelor's, and then 3 years for a law degree, that's 7 years of education, then studying for taking the bar exam, you may decide along the way that wasn't really what you wanted to do. So if you're starting out before you've even obtained a bachelor's degree with this goal of, I'm going to go to law school, have a backup plan, have a separate plan. So I dissuade any type of program called pre-law or in that vein. If you're thinking, I'm just going to go to school the whole way to become an attorney, that's not a great idea, in my opinion, because number one, you may not become an attorney. And number two, it makes for a very one-dimensional attorney. You won't be well-rounded. A better avenue would be to study something that's going to aid you being more of a Renaissance person, that's going to allow you to tackle the issues you see in a much more dynamic fashion. So if you wish to do business corporate law, why not have a business background? If you wish to do criminal law, why not have a criminal justice background? For those that ever want to do patent law, you have to have a hard science degree. It's got to be something of bachelor's of science, master's of science. You can't, like myself, I don't have a science degree. I can never take the patent bar exam. I could not practice patent law. Now, that's a unique area, but it's something you need to consider of all these things of what you're doing when you're getting your bachelor's. After you have that bachelor's, then you can attend a law program. We'll talk in a while as to what should your curriculum look like, what are the electives and things to take. But so going back, you're going to be obtaining the bachelor's of some type, and then you're going to get a law degree. In the United States, most programs these days call that a Juris Doctor. It's not a Juris Doctorate. That's often misstated. It's often put on resumes or websites inaccurately. It's a professional degree, but it's actually not a terminal degree. It's not the final diploma that you can receive in the path of a legal education. After a JD, it is possible to obtain an LLM, which is a Master's of Law, and beyond that, the terminal degree is an SJD, which is a Doctor of Jurisprudential Science. Now, I know only one person in the world that has an SJD. It's very uncommon. That's very research-oriented. It's not what the majority of faculty is going to have. In truth, most people that practice law or teach law just have the Juris Doctor, the JD. Of course, there's various levels of schooling, meaning, some people go to Yale, some people go to Harvard, some people don't. But even at your top universities, it's very surprising to see faculty that has more than a Juris Doctor. Like I said, I only know one person that has the SJD, the Doctor of Jurisprudential Science. But it's not a terminal degree. It is an advanced professional degree, and it is considered commiserate with other educations like a medical education. So we've discussed what you're going to do on the path to obtaining the law degree, if that's your goal. What should you be then considering as far as schools I want to go to? Is this the right avenue or not for me? Well, number one, reality is schools are going to help make this decision for you as far as the admissions process. You're going to take the LSAT, Law School Aptitude Test, sometime either during the tail end of your bachelor's education or possibly after if you take time off. It all just depends. But at some point, you're going to have to take the LSAT and receive a score, and you will use that to apply to law school along with your letters of recommendation, your undergraduate GPA, your personal statement, all these other things that they're going to want in that applications packet. But the unfortunate truth is that law school rankings and law school admissions are driven very heavily by two factors, your GPA and your LSAT. Those are both amazing. You have very good odds at going to good schools. Those are both subpar, below average. Frankly, you're going to have an uphill battle. So the GPA is relatively straightforward. You would have obtained that throughout the course of your undergraduate education. The LSAT, we're not going to go into detail what a good LSAT score is today, other than being aware that you want to do the very best you can. And if you've taken it one time and it's not where you need to be, there's absolutely nothing wrong. There's no shame in studying, preparing, coming back, and possibly taking that again. But one way or another, you're going to apply to universities, and hopefully you'll be admitted to universities. Now is where the complicated question of which law schools do I go to? Should I go to law school? That is going to be sort of the basis of this conversation today. Well, you need to ask yourself, why do you want to go to law school? And that seems like a simple question, but it's not. And when I pose it to people that we mentor or individuals looking at going to law school, the answer is not always as definitive and as quick to come forward as it should be. And I think that when this question of should I go to law school is posed, the age of the person you're asking is very important. Clearly, I myself am a younger attorney. I'm not brand new to the bar. I've been practicing for 7 years. But on the other hand, there are individuals still in our profession who have practiced for almost 50 years. The legal environment has changed tremendously. The economy has changed tremendously, especially post-2008 with all of the fallout from the mortgage crisis. I experienced that very heavily. It was pretty common that after '08, a lot of people decided, I'm going to go back to school because the economy's in shambles, I can't get a job, or I lost my job. I think that I'm going to revisit education. Many schools, including law programs, were very happy to take people and take their money, even if the market didn't need any extra attorneys out there. So what we saw was a massive boom in graduating new lawyers, and I hesitate in saying that because for the most part, if you haven't passed the bar, most people don't think of you as a lawyer, but people graduating with law degrees who then may or may not be able to find jobs. When I was in law school, and I was in school in Texas, on the same day that my school published that they had their largest ever incoming class, the State Bar of Texas published that they had the 6th largest surplus of attorneys in the United States. So we're churning them out faster than we can, think about it, and we don't need any more. So depending on the age of people you talk to, I think that is going to really show you the experiences they've had. That there was a time where if you were a great undergraduate student, you had a good LSAT score, you had good GPA, you went to a good law school, you were a little more guaranteed to have a solid career. That is less so because we see the older generation, the baby boomers, are not retiring. They're statistically working much longer than prior generations. Well, that causes a problem for younger generations because it means that we don't have the openings that would have otherwise been there. That the person that would have been retiring and then opening the door to a new employee, that's not happening. Technology has changed the legal environment like it's changed many other business sectors, that we can get much more efficiency out of partners and associates than we could have before. So whereas I might have needed 2 lawyers in the past, I only need 1 to do the same work because of electronic case research, electronic case filing, fast document review, electronic document review, all the things that we see that have evolved in the last 10 to 15 years have made it where firms are faster, they're more efficient, and they don't need the number of lawyers that they maybe did previously. All of which says we're hiring at a much slower pace. That's been shown for about the last decade. So that is all leading to the big picture of saying, if you think that you're going to go to law school for no other reason than maybe I'll get rich, this is a great career, I could make a lot of money, you need to think twice. If you don't really know this is what you want to do, then definitely don't do it. That the idea of, I got a 4.0 in undergrad, I think I'm really smart, I should go to medical school or law school, is not accurate in 2019. So you have thought about this, you have the right reasons, you have positive intentions. You know that you want to either help people, or this is a profession you believe you can excel in, your skill sets apply well. You know that you're in it for the right reasons, and you're aware that it will not be an easy road. You're aware that the cost of a legal education these days is quite high, and you factor that into your big picture cost-benefit analysis. You've thought about the fact that 3 more years of school is 3 years you could be out making money and advancing in a different career. Because remember, not just are you going to be taking loans and paying for school, you're foregoing 3 years of earning opportunities and that 3 years in which you could have been moving upwards and building on the job experience. So you factored all that in. Now you've applied to schools, and now you've been admitted to some. What do you do? Well, one thing I would tell everyone when they're looking at schools, when they're thinking about education, is consider where you ultimately want to be. It's pretty much proven that the power base for a school's career services through their alumni network extends at most 150 miles. And that's rather intuitive because most people stay there. They live in the surrounding community. They practice in the surrounding community. So if you were to attend, let's say, Tulsa University, and we're going to go over in a bit what the law schools in the state of Oklahoma are, but one of our schools is Tulsa University. It's relatively logical that you will have the most power of connections and networking and employment in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That is, without question, where the most alumni from Tulsa University Law School currently practice and reside. So keep that in mind. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to the elite of the elite. So if you can get into Harvard, great, go to Harvard and you can practice anywhere in the world you want. But for the rest of us that are a little more realistic with aspirations, think about where you want to be. If it's in Oklahoma, there's nothing wrong at all with an Oklahoma school. But if your goal is to live somewhere else in life, then maybe look at a school more local because you're going to have better odds there. The other thing is that the education is going to be tailored to the law of the state you're in. So if you live in Oklahoma, you're going to be taking civil procedure, criminal procedure, rules of evidence, both federal but as well as based on the state of Oklahoma. So when you go out to take the bar exam, you'll be more prepared to take an Oklahoma bar exam. If your goal was to move to Nebraska, you're not going to know a thing about the law in Nebraska, and you're going to have to learn all that on your own. And it would have been therefore more logical to attend the University of Nebraska's law school. So number one, well, maybe not number one. We've discussed so far, to sum up, what is a law degree? What do you have to do to get to a law degree? What are the core things you need to focus on? And what should be some of your considerations in that process? We've talked about determining, is this truly what you want to do? Is it going to be the right financial option? Are you being realistic with what your career prospects are after you graduate? Are you being realistic with what your income could be when you graduate? Because I'll tell you, the numbers put out by most schools, you need to take with a real grain of salt. They usually have what's called a bimodal distribution for their median, that you see two very large spikes if you were to graph out all of the median income or the income for all the graduates each year. On one end, we've got those that go to big law firms, make a lot of money, graduate at the top of their class. And then it's not a smooth, even distribution throughout. It's all the way down a big spike at the other end. That the starting salary in most of the judicial districts in the state of Oklahoma for either a public defender or a new assistant district attorney is in the 40s. It's almost always less than $50,000. If you've incurred $150,000 in student debt, do the math on how long it's going to take to pay that off if you're making less than tentatively you could have made with just your bachelor's degree. So let's talk a little bit about schools then in the state of Oklahoma. There are 3 law schools in our state. The University of Oklahoma, which currently, based on 2019 U.S. News and World Report rankings, is ranked 63rd. There's the University of Tulsa, which is ranked 101. And then there's Oklahoma City University, which is considered the 4th tier. Tiers are broken into groups of 50. And U.S. News and World Report does not rank out past 150. They simply put them in a group at that point. There are over 200 law schools now ABA accredited in the United States. But let's just call it 200 for ease. There's tiers of 50. So you got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. Tier 4, they don't rank at that point. But so we've identified that OU is tier 2, Tulsa is tier 3, and Oklahoma City University is tier 4. Now that by itself is not meant as a knock. There are people on the Oklahoma Supreme Court from all 3 of those schools. I have great friends that have gone to all of those schools. There are name partners at the biggest firms in our state, all making a very handsome sum of money from all 3 of those schools. But what you do need to consider and be pragmatic about as someone considering applying to those schools is that cost-benefit analysis that we touched on, as to how long is this going to take me to pay off my student loans, because the University of Oklahoma is the only public school out of that list. Tulsa and Oklahoma City University are private schools. Even out-of-state tuition for a public school is less than the cost of a private education at Tulsa or Oklahoma City University. Now, that's just a baseline blanket analysis. We're not going to take, obviously, you could obtain a scholarship, you may be qualifying for grants, for all these different options. So if Oklahoma City University offers you a full ride, I'm not telling you that you should not take that. If Oklahoma City University offers you a handsome sum of money that enables you to still have less than the cost of a in-state tuition at the University of Oklahoma, I am not telling you not to take that. But generally speaking, ignoring scholarships, you're going to pay more for the lower ranked schools. So it should be fairly obvious where this is going, that my advice is to strive your hardest to be admitted into the very best school you can, because not just will that enable you to receive a good education and have a more prestigious diploma, it will also likely be the least expensive law education you can receive in the state of Oklahoma. So you're going to get the best bang for your buck. And that's sort of what you have to consider now is, if I did not do well on the LSAT, and the only schools I could get into in the United States are some of the lowest ranked, but they will charge me some of the most of any school in the United States, is this truly the best decision for me? Should I take time to reevaluate? Should I try to retake the LSAT? Should I consider alternative career options? I cannot tell you what to do because, again, it's all individually specific. If you know that your ultimate objective is not even to practice law, but to use your skills that you've obtained in a legal education to set up nonprofits and help people, then maybe it's the perfect choice. If you plan to work your whole career in the public defender's office, whether that's the U.S. federal public defender system or whether that's a state public defender, and that is what you want to do, you want to help people, you have a plan. But if you don't have that level of plan, if you know, I want to go to school, but I don't know exactly, my advice and sort of the overarching summary to this whole episode that we've touched on is, things are not what they seem from an external perspective. That the reality is, our lives are not Law and Order. We don't spend the first 30 minutes captioning the criminal and then the last 30 minutes perfectly in a little package, buttoning up bow, prosecuting and convicting them. This isn't Boston Legal, where every single episode ends out on the patio smoking a cigar and drinking scotch. That, unfortunately, what you don't see is the 98% of the time where you're just doing boring, repetitive work, where you're toiling away for your client, whether that's in discovery or researching some motion to respond to the other side's 400 oppressive motions. It just depends. But if you haven't grown up around an attorney, if you've never mentored, if you've never shadowed, and the bulk of your experience is the media, you have a very bad impression of likely what this job really entails. And so take advantage of those things. Go out, find a mentor, talk to someone who's an attorney, try to shadow someone at a law firm. There's different programs available to do those things, but all those things are going to give you a much better perspective of what a career could ultimately look like for you, or whether or not that's what you would like to do. Once again, we've touched on a lot. If anyone's listening, if anyone has questions about this, please feel free, call in 405-347-7238. Once again, that's 405-347-7238. And so we've discussed, starting out, because I like to summarize for everyone, it's very difficult sometimes when we're driving down the road. We're focusing today on the bad weather. We've got the ice. You don't catch everything that I'm saying. We're dumping a lot of information. So I like to give a lot of summaries. I like to repeat, because that way it's easy and it sinks back in. So summarizing, in the United States, our legal education is a 3-year diploma. It's known as a Juris Doctor, often called a JD. You have to already have a 4-year bachelor's degree. So you're looking at a total of 7 years in school, and that's before you even get this wonderful opportunity to study and take probably the biggest test you'll ever take in your life, the bar exam. To decide whether or not you should go down that path, there's different times you may make that decision. Maybe you have a bachelor's, you've been out of school, you're an adult, and you're a professional. Maybe you haven't even gone to undergraduate yet, and you're still considering those things. If you have not yet obtained a bachelor's, my recommendation is consider a well-rounded path. Take classes that are going to benefit you. Once you're applying to law schools, consider all the options. Weigh what are the costs. For me, I actually attended Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and it's a private school, and it's very expensive. And you're saying, Jason, you just said don't do that. I was set and ready to go to OU. I had accepted an admission and paid a deposit to the University of Oklahoma, and the only reason I ended up going to SMU was because they gave me a scholarship, and so the money worked out. Otherwise, I would never have attended there. Just so happened the way things worked out in life. Once you're in school, something we didn't talk about, and I mentioned that I would, and I'll take some time to talk about that now, that's what kind of classes should you take? What is going to benefit you the most when you get out or as an attorney? It's the same advice I gave you with regards to bachelor's. Be well-rounded. Don't take things or do things that may never provide you benefit. And so if all you do is focus very heavily on some specific areas of substantive knowledge, there's a chance you won't even use that because you don't know exactly what you're going to do. Maybe you're going to do criminal law. Maybe you're going to do estate planning. Maybe you're going to do patent law, immigration. Who knows? There's a million areas of law. On the other hand, for anyone that's ever going to be a trial attorney, trial attorneys win and lose based on rules of evidence and rules of procedure. They're not fun. They're boring. And I didn't enjoy it in school either. But best advice I can give you, and some of the best advice I ever received, I've been given this advice by a judge I clerked for, is focus on classes that focus on rules, procedures, evidence, because that is what's going to help you make or break your cases. It doesn't matter if before you met the client you knew the specific law. You can look that up and you can research that. But before you get to court and when you're in court, whether you win or lose is going to be based on, can I get my evidence in? Can I keep their evidence out? Can I make sure my witness testifies? I want the witness they have to not testify. That's all going to be rule and procedure oriented. So best advice I can give you now when you're in school, focus on those things. Once you're out, hey, there's a lot of different directions to go. Some people choose to have a law degree and not directly practice. Other people work in corporate America. They may be in-house counsel, corporate counsel, general counsel. Others hang their own shingle is the expression, start their own firm. They go into very private practice. Maybe you go to work for a law firm. They're varying in size. World's largest firms have over 2,000 attorneys. Jones Day, for example. On the other hand, you can be as small as one. But whether or not you should go, the number one question that we are always asked, number one question this whole episode, we spent 30 minutes talking about, should I go to law school? If you've got a plan, my answer would be, to sum up this whole episode, think carefully, do your research, talk to someone that's experienced this recently, get a spectrum of opinions. And like I said, the more recent the law graduate is a better example because they will know what curriculum is like today. They will know what the job market is like today. They will know what student loans cost today compared to someone who may have graduated 20, 30, 40 years ago. All of that, and you'll be in a good position. Friends, this has been another episode of The Legal Breakdown. I am Jason Sansone. It's been a pleasure. Be safe out there on the ice, and we will talk to you next week.